I do think with auditioning, it's a muscle, and as long as you're keeping it warm, it's okay. And I think acting is a muscle, and just keeping it warm is the only way to do it. Whatever that looks like, it doesn't have to be paid work. It can be doing a scene with your friend. That's keeping the muscle warm. And so, yeah, like after my time with New York has come to a close, whenever that is, it's like, okay, we're going to have to warm up that muscle again. And it's the first couple auditions might be a little awkward, for sure. Absolutely. We haven't done it in a minute. But I like to think to myself that I'm a little peddler, and I'm selling carpet squares. And these are my carpet squares. And they might go with your curtains, but if they don't go with your curtains, that's fine. These are my carpet squares. You don't like them? That's fine. I'll go to the next room and see if they like my carpet squares. That's what I tell myself.
That's what you tell me.
This is the company of New York, New York. Well, I think all of you on stage know that I love this musical. I'm a huge fan. Here, pass waters down. Let's see. We're going to do the pass off. Here we go. This is like a Susan Stroman step from one of her shows, like passing the water, right? Everybody got it?
Complete.
Perfect. You are all perfection in this show. What is it like living in the world of this musical of New York, New York, and what has made it so special for each of you? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first. What is it like to live in this world? I think it's a very magical time. There's something about not only the aesthetic that our incredible director and creative team have created for us to be in. All of the elements of the show are so spectacular, but it was a really important time in history in this city. We were just coming out of a war, and there was like a resurgence of energy and possibility, and true to kind of where we are today after what we've all been through and what we continue to go through with this pandemic and the trails that it's left in our lives. So being a part of that hopeful spirit is really exciting. As a Latina woman, I feel so lucky to be able to represent my culture so authentically on stage. I play a Cuban woman, and my heritage is Cuban. Yeah. And the creative team and the writers are also so open to really honing in on the specificity of what being Cuban means, down to allowing me to put a virgin that's specifically the patron saint of Cuba up on a Broadway stage. So that level of specificity and being able to honor that for me means the world. And that's being able to do that every night and represent us on that stage every night is really quite beautiful.
I think for me, what I really love about the show is it's unabashedly big. It's a big Broadway musical, and I think that we'd seen a trend of kind of like pared down things and shows that were beautiful, theatrically beautiful, but pared down. And this is not pared down. It's got a big orchestra. It has a big cast. It has a huge Tony Award-winning set. Yeah. It's got all of these things to it that just scream Broadway, and I was missing that in my theater-going experiences. So I feel very, very fortunate to be a part of that. And the best part of it for me, as is always the case, is the people. It started off with the creative team. It starts off with John Kander, who's a 96-year-old man that has more energy than me, and is coming in with such openness, not to impart wisdom as much as he is to learn and to take in what we're giving him. And for somebody of his achievement level and at his age to be that type of person is incredible. You have Lin-Manuel, who's just the biggest cheerleader you could ever wish for. He's selfless in what he wants, the energy he wants to give to the room and to the people in the room. You have Susan Stroman, who comes in with such a focused idea of what she wants, and yet also is open for collaboration and has an old school mentality and work ethic that I really treasure. And then all of our music team, the creative team, and then you brought in this cast. And it's just been a true joy to get to know each and every one of them and to see their work, but more importantly, just to be able to say hi and talk with them a little bit every day.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think for me,
the world of the show is special because it contains so much. The show is big, and it's Broadway, and we do it with a smile on our face, but the world is also full of post-war grief, and these people who are dealing with loss and both potential loss and loss that they know has happened, and it's something beautiful to be able to go out and do something that makes people so happy, but to also have these experiences that are true to life in this city, that these things that happen to us, and yet we keep moving forward, and we keep getting on the subway and going to work and seeing our friends, and I think the show really does a great job of telling that.
I like that the show is, I think, at its core about people holding their hands out to each other. Yeah. Really. And I know I've lived in New York 30 some years, and I've experienced horrific things, but just as many amazing things from people. So I love that the show really comes across in the show, that it's about your city. The city is about people and people's kindness and affection with each other.
Beautiful. Yep.
For me, it's the music. I love this art form, and I have for a long time, and I love to sing and dance and act and all of the things, but music was truly my first love. I was singing before I could talk, and there's something about music that it transcends everything. You all have that song that got you through the breakup. You all have that song that brings you back to that specific moment. It carries you in a way that no other force on earth really can. And John Kander knows how to wield it. Yeah. He is a magician. And I've never experienced being in a show where I could literally sing. I can sing But the World Goes Round in any mood. It doesn't matter, because it actually is there for you wherever you are. And it's something about the way he's crafted these notes together. So getting to sing that score every single day, such a gift.
Nice. Angel, for you.
This is a marvelous experience. As a immigrant myself, I am from Mexico. I came to the States when I was 10 years old, and this is just beyond my wildest dreams. But getting to represent a story that is an immigrant story and is one of hope, and of course also having some queerness in that, and in a time that really wasn't as fully accepting, is such a beautiful thing. And I'm just so lucky to be able to be here with this cast, and to be able to be with the creative team who, beyond their talent, they're just kind people, and have made me feel like I belong here. And that has helped me, which is the biggest battle, believing in yourself and truly going for it. That was the biggest hurdle, and they helped me, and these people help me every night.
Beautiful. I want to continue on that question, because one of the greatest things about New York City, it has always been a melting pot of different cultures, nationalities, and races. And that's what makes New York really, really special. And that is true in one of the many wonders of this musical. Talk about how important that is for each of you, because some of you already talked about this, and what these roles mean to you, and just the representation and what you wanted to bring to them. Like, Anna, you're playing Francine. Yeah. Yeah. What you wanted to bring to her from your standpoint. Yeah. The kind of conversations you had with David Thompson and Sharon Washington, your writers.
I wanted to honor the women that I stand on the shoulders of. That came first and foremost for me. And so much of Francine Evans is based on Lena Horne and her story of singing in the USO and turning her back on the white prisoners of war and choosing to face towards her people and sing to them, and getting ostracized for it. And Dorothy Dandridge and Eartha Kitt and all of these women that I thank every single day when I sing these songs. But yeah, I'm just so grateful for the sacrifices that they made, because yes, this business is hard, and yes, I could sit here and tell you all the reasons why it's difficult, but it's also very easy, and I've had a very easy time in this show in so many ways, and I'm taken care of by my producers, and they fought battles I will never understand. And so I'm just so thankful that I get the ease of stepping on this stage and singing these songs while this care and this family is just surrounding me, because so many people didn't have that.
Yeah, beautiful. Anybody else want to talk about working with David and Sharon, specifically on your characters and what you wanted to bring to them? Because everyone's so different in this show, which is so wonderful. Like I said, it's a melting pot in this show. Who wants to go next?
The funny, I'll just tell because I play a producer who's maybe not the nicest guy. Misunderstood. Not at all, actually. But Sonia Friedman, our producer, actually, who's also British, was very, very keen on making sure that this British producer wasn't played in a totally Snidely Whiplash way. So that was the one thing that Sharon and Tommy and I focused on, and Stroman, and then Sonia also. I was always looking to Sonia to make sure I got the nod of approval.
Nice.
I think what else, they were both, Tommy and Sharon wanted us to bring our culture and what we felt about what we were representing to our characters, and never wanted to obstruct that. So if there ever felt like there was something that was obstructing that, they were completely open to having a conversation about what we can do to edit and change and make and form it to what we were personally bringing, which is something I think is probably uncommon. Obviously Alex, the character I'm playing, is Jewish. I also happen to be Jewish, which is great, but they never wanted to impose any sort of thought that they had of the character before I walked in the room onto me. They wanted me to bring in my thoughts about my Jewishness, my thoughts about his Jewishness into the character, and they wanted that to be built into the script. And I think that that's an incredible thing.
Yeah. Beautiful.
On that very same note, the same thing happened with the Diaz family. I think Sharon and Tommy were very open to authenticity. And even when Janet and I would ad-lib a few things in Spanish, to be like, but what are you saying there? Because we want to make sure that it's on the script, and we want to make sure that that story gets passed down to the next group of people that get a shot at these characters. And I think having that freedom was so inviting, because then we really just brought our authentic selves into that, and that is a blessing for sure.
Yeah, and on that note, I can't believe I'm speaking Spanish for the most part in the show. And I think that is just so not just beautiful, but also a wonderful way to have an audience have to lean in and really sort of invest in these characters in a way that maybe they wouldn't have to if we were just speaking in English. There's a different flavor to saying these lines in Spanish. There's like a depth to it that comes from not just my upbringing, but what the immigrant goes through to have to assimilate in this country. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we get to do that on stage every night. And for those who do speak Spanish in the audience, they hear themselves and they see themselves and they're like, oh, I am literally playing my mother on stage. That's all I'm doing. But the people who know who these women are, we've gotten some really beautiful messages from those people who have shared with us. I love the fact that it's unapologetic, that it just is what it is, and that's what it is, and we get to see that on a stage. And thanks to both Tommy and Sharon, that's part of one of the elements in our show.
Emily, for you, I think all these stories are beautiful. Yours is so beautiful and heartbreaking. I love the journey you take us on in this show. What's it like playing the role you play, Emily, and just working on her?
Well, this show was originally, what would you think, 4 hours long? This show was a very, very, very long show. And these, over the course of time, the stories got streamlined and streamlined and streamlined because nobody wants to sit there for 4 hours. But I know our story, we still try to get in a lot of the story that has been sort of excised in different ways. In different ways, my character had been had a very successful concert violinist career, and then she got terrible arthritis and had to stop. And I still try to get that in there, even though we don't talk about it. We also don't talk about the fact that this is a person who's had major grief in her life. Her husband had been, she'd been married to a person who worked on Wall Street, and he flung himself off a building in the crash of 29. And she was left to raise a son by herself, trying to make a living being a concert violinist while really not being able to be a present parent. So her relationship with her son isn't that great, and now he's gone off to war. So a lot of that is still not, it's not there in words, but we try to get it in anyway. And to me, that is actually the fun part of this thing. My favorite scene that I get to do in this show is your audition scene, because there are no words in it at all. And I'm just living that audition with you in such a full way, in a way I think any parent who's watching their child do something amazing. You're standing there or you're in an audience or you're behind a door and it's going on and you're so invested in it. And so to get to have that moment every night with Oliver it's the full rich joy of this show for me.
I can see it.
You can.
Yeah. Let's hear it. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning. But you all do that. You all fill in so beautifully the stories you take us on in this show. For those of you who have not seen New York, New York, it's sensational. Like I said, I've been there 4 times already, and I'm going back. So I can't wait to go back. You're all working, like I told you earlier, with 3 generations of Broadway's legends, that have created this musical. There's John Kander and late Fred Ebb. For me, there's nothing better than that. Then you have original story by David Thompson, co-written with Sharon Washington, Lin-Manuel Miranda with additional lyrics, direction and choreography by Susan Stroman. Let's begin with John Kander. I'm sure you've all had these incredible pinch-me moments with John Kander. Just being in the room with John, what has that been like for each of you? Would you share some fabulous moment like, I'm in the room with John Kander? Anybody can start. Angel.
My last audition for the show, it was in person, and I came in and I sang a bit of my own music, and I sang it, for the whole team, but I didn't realize that John was in the room until Susan Stroh was like, John, do you have any notes? And turns around and there's John, and I cursed. I let it, and I was like, oh my God. And we had a moment. And then they approached me with the song Gold, which had just been written a few days before my audition. And when John came over to the piano, we had a beautiful moment. It was that the song is about my mother and how I want to uplift her, but it truly is just about also Mateo and how he wants to live his dreams and maybe even get to wear a golden dress someday. But John and I had a moment where we were just like, we saw each other, and there were tears in his eyes, and it makes me emotional even to this day. And I think that I just saw his humanity, and that I think has just translated into every musical moment in this show, and I think that's so special.
Who wants to go next?
I think the only thing bigger than John's sweet tooth, which is ginormous. The man is always on candy or donuts or something like that, is his humanity.
Yeah.
If there's one word, it's watching him. And I don't want to take away your moment, because I think I know what your moment with John is going to be. Yes, with light.
Oh,
I actually forgot about that.
But
Thanks for reminding me.
yeah, there have been so many moments. Yeah?
Yeah.
There have been so many moments. One of them was when Colton sang A Quiet Thing, and it was in a rehearsal, and it brought John to tears. For somebody who wrote that song, I don't even know how long ago he wrote that song, but to be able to be touched by it through somebody else's interpretation of that is huge and human. And then one other day we were singing Light, which is about Manhattan Henge. I don't know if you've seen it. And it's a beautiful song with these beautiful open chords and everything. And I don't think John was getting exactly the right spirit of it. So he brought, and it's with the whole ensemble, which aren't that many huge ensemble numbers. This is one. He brought Anna up in front of us, and he said, you guys are all singing this to her. So he made us sit there and look at her. I'm getting choked up. He made us sit there and look at her and sing it to her. And by the end, all of us were crying. And I think it just shows that the reason that John wants to do this is to affect us and to affect, to be affected. And I've had so many moments of those where I just look over at him and you wonder what's going on in his head, but it's loving and it's sweet and it's filled with kindness and grace.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, he has an understanding that his work is not complete until it's experienced your interpretation of it. And as a singer, that's such an honor to be given the space to do what you do and interpret things the way you want them to. And so I remember when I auditioned for this, of course, you learn the notes on the page and you learn them exactly as they are written, because God forbid you ever insult John Kander's work by singing anything different. And I remember in one of our rehearsals, I was singing World Goes Round, and he was like, can you just do something different? I was like, what do you mean? I'm singing what you wrote, God. And he was like, yeah, but sing it how you want to sing it. Sing the song. You're the singer. Yes, this is a suggestion. This is the roadmap, but now drive the car, please. And there's something about him. He just has no ego. He does not need to be proven right in any capacity. He just wants to find what way is right and what way will work and what way will heal people the most. And he's always ready to lean on you. And so I felt deeply trusted by a 96-year-old man, which is wild. But yeah, that's it.
I think the best thing about John as a creative is the fact that he never thinks he's being clear enough. He'll give a note and he'll be so articulate, and at the end of it he'll be like, you probably don't understand what I'm saying. and I think that's what makes his work so clear, is because he's constantly looking at it and being like, I don't think this is as clear as it can be. Which as an actor is so great, because you're having someone trying to make something as clear to you as it possibly can be, and someone who's willing to shift their thought process to make it more clear to you. And that's a wonderful and unique thing, especially in someone who has lived for so long and experienced so many things.
And he's 96. And he comes in with more energy and openness than anyone in the room, and he loves the art form so much, and it's infectious, and you want to do right by him, and you want to honor him, and you want to show up for him. He's 96. He would come to rehearsal every day.
Yeah.
Mostly to just eat candy, but
Whatever it takes, right?
And he's cracking jokes right and left. He's not serious.
No, and then he gets in front of the piano and he plays like he's a kid.
Yeah.
His fingers are so fast. It's just being in his orbit. It's magical. Yeah. And it makes you want to continue. And if he shows up, then you have to show up. That's it.
That's good.
Anybody else want to add about John? Well, I want to talk about working with Susan Stroman, what makes her one of the most sought-after director choreographers. And I'd like to start with Emily and Janet, because you've worked with Stro before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talk about being in the room with Stro and working under her tutelage. And
My gosh, I've one of my first jobs I got in New York was A Christmas Carol at the Paramount Theater, and Stro was the choreographer in that. And then I was the reader for Steel Pier, for all the auditions for Steel Pier.
Wow.
And then I worked on her with a project called Prince of Broadway, which is Hal Prince's last show. So I've gotten to sort of work with Stro in various stages of her career. But she has always been how she is now, which is incredibly prepared. She has the whole show done in her head before you even get into a room with her, in the most sort of meticulous, wonderful, wonderful way. That's not to say that you as a performer don't have the room to bring yourself and play and all of that. But she to me is the example of the kind of choreographer and director that I really love. I like being in rooms with people who've done more work than you expect.
Yeah.
That's how you get inspired. That's how a company is inspired. That's how you lead a company. I don't know, Gianna. What can you add about Stro?
Well, yes. My first experience with Stro was Prince of Broadway, and she was co-directing with Hal Prince. And the generosity in the room, I mean, she just basically sat next to him and was like, what do you want? I'll do whatever you want because it's Hal Prince. And it's Susan Stroman. I mean, they're just such titans in the director world, and to see her openness and willingness to just collaborate with him and be at his side, not feel like she has to lead the room, even though she does very beautifully lead the room, but she's like, this is Hal's space and I'm here to serve Hal, who has changed the industry and the genre for all of us. So to work with her in that capacity and see her sort of take the backseat to Hal Prince was just so incredible. And also when she had to step up and sort of lead the room, obviously she did. And so one of the really fun moments that I remember putting together Prince of Broadway with Stro was she obviously choreographed. And there was a moment where we were working on You've Got Possibilities, and something inadvertent happened. It was a mistake where I kind of went on my back and scissor kicked my legs and caught a folder with my legs. And she's like, oh, let's do that. I was like, great. So now that's in the number. But that's sort of an example of how you get into a space and you can create, and she's willing to, things happen, and then all of a sudden now they're part of the production because she has an eye and can see how to sort of manipulate that impromptu moment and create art out of that, right? Which was so fun. And same thing with our experience with her leading this. You kind of just get up and you start playing and doing things, and she's like, okay, well, what about this? And let's try that. And even though it is so crafted in her head, the fact that you can come in and be open and play and create with her, it's just thrilling. And it's a director who is lifting you up to be your best. And that is just, it's the best way to play. You feel so safe in a room and you can make mistakes, which there are none because then they become part of the show, right? But she allows you to just try things, and our ability to be able to trust her and to know that that's okay just makes the experience so fun and easy. The guard does not come up because she's got you.
We should also say probably that this show was her idea.
Yeah.
This show was actually Stro's idea that she took to Kander and Tommy and Sharon and said, I think this could be a stage musical, and she really drove the bus on this, and it is completely her vision.
Yeah. Anna, working with Susan.
Well, I so happened to grow up in the same hometown that Stro grew up in, different times, but I grew up learning about her. She was like the legend that made it out of Wilmington, Delaware, and we all wanted to be like her one day, and I'm doing my little community theater there, and there's a picture of her on the wall, and we're like all praying to Susan Stroman. And then I get in the room and there she is. And I was like, hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Delaware. And maybe that's why I got cast. I don't know. But I love how fast she works. I appreciate the quick pace of things. She doesn't spend too long on one thing. I find that I get bored very quickly in the rehearsal space. I'm like, all right, let's do the next thing. All right, let's do the next one. Let's do that. We don't need to harp on this too long. We'll figure it out tomorrow. We'll sleep on it, and it'll be better tomorrow. Let's keep going. And she very much so works that way, and I love it. And she checks in all ways. She has her idea of how a scene's supposed to go, of course. She's more prepared than all of us. But then she's like, how does that feel? Do you like that? Do you not like that? Okay, well, what do you want to do? What does your instinct tell you right here? So yeah, just like they said, just giving you space to be and try things. And I think acting is scary, singing is scary, dancing is scary. It's all scary because you're afraid of making a mistake. And the second you mix perfectionism and art, it's a horrific place, right? And so there were days where I'm like, well, that was shitty. Like whatever I did. And she would just always be like, great job, honey. How did it feel? Good job, honey. Always lifting, always lifting, always lifting, because the opposite never works and the opposite is never helpful, and it just shuts down creativity. So really thankful for a director that's constantly lifting me up.
Yeah. Love that. Oliver, for you, working with Stro on this.
She has an incredible eye for bodies and action, which I think as an actor is, at least for me personally, is the thing that's hardest for me to see, because it's easier for me to think about what I'm going to say, how I sound, but what the story that my body is telling is often the thing that comes last. And to have a director that has such a keen eye for the story your body is telling is incredibly helpful. I don't do a lot of dance in the show, but all of my scene work, she was able to look at, what is the story I'm telling with the actions that I'm doing, which is something that as a director is incredibly helpful. Also just watching her with the ensemble is like a masterclass in directing and choreographing dance and movement. I mean, the stories that she's able to create with bodies and pictures is one of a kind, and it's a learning experience for sure for someone who's interested in doing what she does.
Yeah. Beautiful. Ben, for you, working with Stro.
I think she's a legend. She's a living legend, and there was this mythology that I brought into the room and placed upon her. And in some ways, she's absolutely lived up to that. And then there's also where it's just an incredibly driven, passionate human being who loves this art form. This art form to her is the pinnacle of storytelling. And the way that she's able to bring movement in, our transitions in our show are amazing to me. Yeah. So there's the story takes place through a full year. And so they're all seasons. And within those seasons, these transitions happen. And the storytelling that she does through just movement and gorgeous music that Sam Davis has worked on is extraordinary to me. Maybe mostly because I'm not a dancer at all, and so the way that I look upon that kind of storytelling is with this incredible amount of awe, and the specificity which she gives you in those transitions to me is a masterclass, and that's what I love watching. I love watching how people work with the incredible artists that we have.
Yeah. Beautiful. Angel, for you, working with Stroman.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with what we're saying here, and something that rings true is just that openness that she brings. She's prepared and she knows exactly what she would like out of a scene, but gives us that freedom to play. And that I know doesn't happen normally. I mean, with this was my first experience on Broadway, and learning from my cast members who have been here. I know that this experience doesn't quite happen quite often, but I feel like it should, because we're not sitting here just gushing about these people because that's, they're paying us for to do that. Like, we are truly, I was truly taken back by not only their talent, but their kindness and their generosity, and really, truly just their passion to put this project on, because I feel like there was just so much love in the room to be able to do that. and that is that's infectious, and I carry that love with me. Just a funny little story. My first dance call for this role. First of all, it was really cool to see all Latinos in the room. I was like, this is the first time that I saw like 20 plus Latinos all in one place. And the moment that she walked in her all black outfit and the cap, everyone just stood a little taller. And you were expecting this big presence, and she is, and she took over the room, but with kindness and a smile, and that just makes you feel like, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable enough to make the mistakes that I need to make in order to learn and to move forward from that. And I think that it was because of that I was able to, be as successful as I could be in this production, that audition specifically, and to be here.
Because go ahead. Some of you got these roles from, we were talking upstairs before we started about self-tapes and everything else. How many got this job from a self-tape? Look at this, sorry.
I know.
Did you do a lot of them? I mean, we've had conversations about self-tapes. I know a lot of everybody in the house is an actor and people watching. Self-tapes can be okay, but then you get paranoid saying, I've done 10 takes on this. Have I done too many? Have I sent the right one in? I mean, when you were auditioning for this one from a self-tape, did you second guess yourself at any point saying, should I have sent number 2 in? Why did I send number 3 in? Should I do this again?
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. You care. You care so much and you want them to cast you. So, yeah, you're going to go over every inch of it and you're going to freak out because that's what we do. But, yeah, I sent in New York, New York, But the World Goes Round, and 3 scenes. That was what they wanted in the self-tape. And so, of course, I'm wearing a nice blouse and sweatpants because you're framed from here up, and socks. And I did several takes of each one. And every time I choose a take, I'm always just like, well, which one do I believe? Which one's honest? I would rather, maybe hit notes slightly wonky but actually be believable than sing it perfectly and look like a robot. So that's the question I always ask. And then I sent the tapes in, and then they said, okay, we want to see you in person. And I sang New York, New York in front of John Kander. And I remember the reader was so good. Like, shout out to that reader. I don't know what his name was, but he was incredible. And the scenes were fire. And I remember feeling really free and just really unlocked. And it speaks to who they are. They didn't say anything. They didn't say, hey, you have permission to feel free. They just were, and I was. And I remember improvising a little bit in the scenes. I don't know where I got the gall to do that, but I did. And then the audition's over, and they call me back again for another call. And they had sent me updated scripts for these sides. And I was looking over it, and the lines that I had improv'd were now in the script. And I said, oh, okay, you like me. All right. And then it was just fun. I was like, I think I booked this. I didn't know what the show was. It was for the workshop, which we did in early 2022, and it was called the Untitled Susan Stroman Project, and that's all I knew about it. I didn't know it was called New York, New York. That's all. So the stakes didn't feel very high for me. I was just like, cool, I'm just going to work with these people for 3 weeks, and that's it, and probably never see them again. So I'll just make a good impression and then fly away. And now here we are.
That's great. Emily, what did you have to send in? Do you remember what you did?
I didn't send in anything. I got a call from Prose saying we're doing a lab. And
Good. Yeah.
Tommy and I have a view in mind for this role, and would you come do it?
Yeah.
And that was in January of 2022. And then we did that lab like February, March?
Yeah.
Yeah.
March 5th was our presentation.
And my favorite thing about that, because she was doing 6 at the time, she was doing double duty.
That was rough.
If you can imagine, which I can't. But my favorite thing about that experience was watching John Kander fall so in love with you and Colton.
Aww.
Oh my God. It was the best thing in the world just to watch John watch the two of you.
Yeah.
Aww.
It was lovely.
It was special.
Oliver, for you sent in, right?
Yes, I sent in a tape like right before Christmas, and then I had a callback right after the New Year, and got a call that night, and we started rehearsal at the end of January. So it was very fast. And in terms of the self-tape, it had reached a point. You do a certain amount of self-tapes where you can't spend too much time on any one thing, because you're just going to drain yourself of like all of your energy. So I started capping myself. I would only do 3 takes of any one thing, because it's never really going to change that much. You know, if they like you, they like you. And if they don't want to move forward with you, then they don't. There's not really many choices you can make that are going to change that, in my opinion. Yeah. This part in particular felt really appropriate for me, both vocally and just the character. The accent was something that was sort of natural for me. So I felt like I kind of just did it. I was actually in California. I wasn't even home. I didn't have any of my self-tape equipment or anything. I just kind of like threw it together. I think the callback was really where the sort of part actually landed for them. You know, after I'd done the tape, you get the callback, and that's when you're like, okay, I'm going to double down on this work, and I'm going to make this at least a really great experience. I don't know if I'm going to be cast or not, but so yeah, that's what happened.
And they found he was the last one cast too. I was literally doing press for the show, and they were like, "We still haven't found our Alex, man." And then they finally got your tape, and they were like, "Ah!" They were so excited. Anyway.
Yeah. Ben, your audition for this.
Mine's kind of funny. I was going to do a Sondheim concert in St. Louis, and the night before, I of course get 3 self-tapes. So my girlfriend and I are doing those late that night. We get them done, and then on the way to the airport or at the airport, I'm looking through all the self-tapes. I'm like, okay, that one's okay, that one's okay. And I got to this one, and I went, that sucks. So I didn't send it in, and they were like, "Are you sure you don't want to tape for this?" I was like, "No, I'm going to pass on it because it wasn't what I want to present." And so I get to St. Louis, and I'm in rehearsal, and it happens to be with Skinner here. And so after rehearsal, we're walking, and she's like, "So," I said to her, I was like, "So what are you doing?" And I didn't know if there was I wasn't sure if Broadway was going to happen for me again. This is my 7th, but I was like, I don't know if the landscape of Broadway is there for me anymore. And I kind of relate to her, and then I go, "So what's going on with you?" She goes, "Oh, I'm actually doing a Broadway show." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Which one?" She goes, New York, New York." I said, "You know what? I had an audition for that, and I sucked, so I didn't send it in." And she looked at me. She goes, "Oh no, you've got to do this." So we marched back up to the hotel room. She was my reader.
Yeah.
I sent it in, and you asked for it too. So I don't know if you passed it on as well or what you did, but I feel like you had a hand in that.
I just want to see my fine work.
Oh, okay, that was it. That was
As your reader.
And then I found out quickly thereafter that I had been cast. So
Was it?
it was both of my scenes.
You were Francine?
Yeah,
That's
she was
incredible.
Francine.
Oh,
I did my best bad impression of you.
oh, I want to see that. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it was pretty kismet that I just happened to have Emily Skinner with me singing in a concert to help me through the process.
And you know, if it had been another actor who said they were going to audition for, have an audition for the director, I would have been like, good luck with that. But I knew he was exactly what they were looking for.
Oh.
Exact. So that's why I forced you to do it.
Kind of did. I'm very, very glad she did.
That's why he pays me 10% of his paycheck.
Janet, for you, your audition for this.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. I was on my way up to Flint, Michigan to do a concert version of the Who's Tommy, and I stopped here in New York, and I had gotten the sides for the show, and I was like, this is, again, my mother on the page. Literally everything she says is on the page. The character is married to a Cuban baseball player. My great-grandfather is in the Hall of Fame in Cuba for playing baseball. Wow. So there are all these funny little parallels that were quite odd to me in the specificity of my personal life. So I just walked in the room like I'm literally just going to be myself, not far from the truth. And, I went in, I did the 2 scenes, I sang the song. I think I was the only person they saw that day. And I went off to do my little concert, and 2 weeks later, I got a call that I got the part. So...
Isn't there's certain people where in a cast that we're like, well, it couldn't have been anybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's Janet.
Angel, for you, your audition.
All right, y'all. So, this one's a little wild because it happened really quick, like Oliver as well. I was one of the last few people to get cast. I was working in Norristown, Pennsylvania, being a server and also working at People's Light Theater Company. We were doing a panto version of Alice in Wonderland. And I saw this Instagram post. I saw an Instagram post that they were looking for a Mateo Diaz for this New York musical with Lin-Manuel Miranda and Susan Stroman, John Kander. I said, what? I read the description and I was like, that's me. I could do that. And then that same day, I screenshotted it. And then that same day, I was in rehearsal. 2 hours later, an old professor of mine sent me the same screenshot, and I was like, okay, this is too much. I need to do this. So I found the time to send in my headshot, my resume. They asked for tapes, and I did both of our scenes that we have. My sister helped me read those in the basement of our house, and a few days later, they asked me to be in person. I had no agent. I just had a dream, and it just felt right. Everything about the project felt right. And so just don't sleep on that, y'all. Don't sleep on those video submissions. Don't sleep on any opportunity that maybe seems too good to be true. If you find the time, that's all you have to lose, just your time. So send it. And that's what happened. I was able to, in 2 days, get this role. So lucky that they told me in the room after I was the last Mateo that they saw that day, and Susan was like, okay, just wait outside. And so I'm like, no, this cannot be happening. And I came back, and they told me that I had Mateo. But one of the magical moments of this, and in the song Gold, there's one of the last few lyrics that we sing is, we're going to shine like that skyline. And they had the windows open in the audition room, and I remember looking out at New York City skyline, and I was like, this is too much, this is too perfect. So yeah, honestly, just don't sleep on those, and keep trying, because you never know. You honestly never know.
There's a video too.
Oh yeah.
If you haven't seen, there's a video of the moment he found out that he booked the role in the room, and it's on your Instagram, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and Susan's like, hey, we were wondering if you would like to come play Mateo Diaz in New York on Broadway, in the room. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to stay on auditioning because you just said, keep doing them and sending them in. I've spoken to every major star who's been in one of your chairs, and I've asked them the same question about, we all know as actors you have to audition. It's part of the process. But, there's that scary part before you open that door. You have no idea what you're going to see on the other side. And I was wondering, are you all very good at auditioning? Are you okay at auditioning, at different points of your career? Was it something you like? Is there a secret you've learned to a good audition? Another question I have for you, if you were given 4 or 5 callbacks for something, where you're that close to getting something, and you don't get it, how do you process that, and how do you move on? That's the big question, because that's what we do in this business, right?
You don't. You hold a mean grudge forever.
I have a list.
But I mean, seriously, for all of you, because you've all been down this road before, that's the big question. When you're that close to having someone said, you're Mateo, you're Francine, but you don't get that. Mm-hmm. You've all been in that, maybe you haven't, but some of you have been in that room. How do you move past it? How do you process that? Because we all have to process stuff to move along, right? Mm-hmm. Is there, for everybody watching around the world and the audience that are here, say, as actors who go through the same thing, is there some advice you can give of how you've done that personally?
This is really idyllic and everything, but it's so hard to believe in this. There's always a reason. There's always something that's meant for you is yet to come that you can't see. But in that moment, I think it's perfectly okay to get caught up in being pissed in that moment. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's about not languishing in it, but be pissed. Yeah. Let that spur on something next to you, but have a perspective on it too, so that you're not getting mired in your own rage that just turns in against you then and works against anything that could happen in the future. But I think that it's perfectly human, and if you care about it, you're going to be pissed because you wanted that role. I was pinned. This wasn't for theater. I was pinned for a TV role, and they kept me pinned for like 2 or 3 weeks. And this was at a moment where I could have really used that gig for many reasons in my life. And they kept me pinned, and I was like, what's going on? You still there? And then didn't get it after like a month, I think it was. And I'm maybe still a little pissed. But I think it's okay. As long as then you got to turn it into a positive thing instead of something that's just going to eat away at you.
Yeah. Beautifully put.
A couple years ago, I tested for this Disney pilot, and I got all the way to the end, and it was like, I don't know how many girls they started off with, and it was going to be like for the lead, and it got down to final 3, and I read with the other cast members who were cast, and then they send it to the network, and then the network makes the decision, and then in the end it was a no. And I had sent in tape after tape after tape after tape, Zoom callback after Zoom callback after Zoom callback. Like I was, you had negotiated your contract already because that's how it works, and you knew what you were going to get paid, and we were already talking about plane tickets to fly to London and all of these things. You're revamping your entire life in your mind. And I was tutoring kids at the time to make ends meet because this was during the pandemic, and it was like I was like, oh my gosh, like my life's gonna change, and I'm gonna go to London, and I'm gonna go be a star in this Disney pilot. Nope, never mind. And it was at the end of the workday, and I was about to say goodbye to the kids, and my agent texts me, and he's like, hey, you need to call me right now. And I was like, I got it, you guys, I got it. And I went outside, and I called him. I'm like, hi, what's up? And he's like, nope. And, bawled my eyes out. Yeah, it's terrible. But that's the answer is you have to feel it all. You put in so much work. You put in so much time. You have to feel it. And I kept wondering, well, what does this mean? Because I do believe that anytime something is taken away, something will fill. Something will always come and fill that void. You just don't know what it is yet. And I was like, I can't wait to find out why I didn't get this. And then a year later, I was just looking up the project, and I was like, I wonder whatever happened with it. Like, are they shooting? Like, what's going on? Turns out production got pushed indefinitely because the other actors found other jobs, and it has ceased to exist completely and will never exist. And so there's a reason why I didn't book it, and a bunch of other jobs came in because of that. But yeah, truly there is a reason. I do think with auditioning, it's a muscle, and as long as you're keeping it warm, it's okay. And I think acting is a muscle, and just keeping it warm is the only way to do it. Whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be paid work. It can be doing a scene with your friend. That's keeping the muscle warm. And so, yeah, like after my time with New York has come to a close, whenever that is, it's like, okay, we're going to have to warm up that muscle again. And it's the first couple auditions might be a little awkward for sure. Absolutely. We haven't done it in a minute. But I like to think to myself that I'm a little peddler, and I'm selling carpet squares. And these are my carpet squares. And they might go with your curtains, but if they don't go with your curtains, that's fine. These are my carpet squares. You don't like them? That's fine. I'll go to the next room and see if they like my carpet squares. That's what I tell myself.
That's what you tell me.
I love that.
Amazing.
I think there's also something to, when you get really far, that means you're good, guys. Yeah. You're in the game. You are in the game, and you're playing. And I know that we all want to win the game, and we want to win the part, and we want to do the thing. But if you're part of that conversation, that means you're doing really good work. And there's really something to that I think we forget because we want the prize, right? But if you're part of the conversation, that's not to be the hopeful one, but you're doing it. So to hold on to that, hold on to the things that pull you through, and keep you believing that you can. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's important, and that's something that's sort of like sidelined when you're really in the running for something. Something that I learned that sort of shifted auditioning for me was somebody said to me, and I don't remember where this was, they want you to win. They want you to be the person that solves their problem. So if you walk in there with that mindset, as opposed to the scarcity mindset, your energy is already different. When you're coming to this being of service, these are my squares. I'm peddling my squares. Do my squares fit into your
All right,
tapestry?
we have to stop talking about us
you know
as
what I mean?
squares.
Like,
I can't take it.
I'm saying, like, when you come in with that kind of mentality as opposed to, oh, what is this? I'm so scared. I don't know. What am I doing? Are they going to like me? Are they not going to like me? That's human nature, I feel like. But if you can sort of finesse and manage that energy to serve you, then you're already coming in with a different perspective and energy. And I think that that's something they're able to see you, which is ultimately all you can bring is yourself and be who you are, you know? So that was a big shifting moment for me as far as auditioning. It's like, I'm not going to be that person and I'm not that person. So I'm just going to try my best to be myself, which is the hardest thing to do, weirdly, right?
Yeah.
I have a bunch of things to say now. And I'm just going to chime in here now because I am the grizzled veteran of this lineup. Number one, I am not a square. I don't think of myself as a square. I think of myself as a human being. Two, I think that as an actor, you get what you're supposed to get. I really, really do think that. I've been close to many things and not gotten them and all sorts of stuff, but I also think the things that I have gotten, I was absolutely supposed to get, you know? And I think if we sort of think in that direction, it's also a useful way to recover from the things that we didn't get, that we got close to, as well as what Janet just said, which is that, you know, if you're getting that close to stuff, that means you are really in the game. Yeah. You're really in the game. I just want to say something about Oliver for a second. And just because I think it's interesting and I think it's inspirational. I know when the pandemic hit, I was in rehearsal for a Broadway show that was about to do a tryout, and then the pandemic hit, and I did not work for 16 months. I mean, I did not work at all. When the pandemic hit, what were you doing?
Oh, I had done a play, really my first play after graduation. I got back to New York, the pandemic hit.
He just graduated,
and
right? He'd done one play.
Yeah, and the pandemic hit, and
pandemic hit.
I was back to square one. I had all the momentum I had gotten from anything was gone. I was living with my parents. Self-tapes were starting to be a thing in a way that none of us had ever learned how to do a self-tape. And
because they really trained you how to do that in school.
Oh, yeah, no, I had literally never done a self-tape in my entire life. And now all of a sudden it was like we were expected to know how to do this thing. And I think especially for people who hadn't been really in the industry before, people didn't want to take a chance on anyone that they didn't know. Things were just getting started again, and the things that were getting started again were being started with fear that they were going to end very quickly. So people wanted the assurance of having people they knew were going to be, you know, like actors that they worked with before, or that they at least knew something about. So trying to get back in after the pandemic hit was...
But so can you imagine you get out of school, you're like, I'm out, I'm going to start to work, and then the pandemic hits. Yeah. And then, you know, 2 years into this, you get a call to make a self-tape for some show, and how many self-tapes had you done?
Oh God, hundreds.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Yeah. And he forced himself to make this tape, and he got it. Yeah. And he got a Broadway show.
Yeah, and I think that it really is, I think, being at the right place at the right time. That there's nothing you can do, you know what I mean, other than be completely prepared.
But it's also a stamina game.
Yeah.
It's a stamina game. If you do 40 self-tapes, you'll book one.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that Bryan Cranston
Who will
video
book
where he
one?
talks about auditioning? And he said that his aha moment was that he has to stay in his lane. His job is to present a believable character and tell this story. Doesn't matter. He doesn't decide if he gets the job. He doesn't have anything to do with that. His only job is to go in there prepared to tell a story as a believable character and leave the room and forget about it.
Yeah.
Now, that's the hardest thing to do probably is to forget about it, but I thought the stay in your lane moment, that stuck with me.
But you know what else? I will say, I actually think the advent of self-tapes, I think they are great. And I know I actually like doing self-tapes because I have so much more control over my audition. When I used to have to go and audition for things, you got to prepare when in your apartment. Then you got to get on the subway. You got to have your. Then you
It's an
got
event.
to. Then you got to wait in a room with 20 other people who look like you, and they're running late. And then you got 30 seconds in the room, and if you nail it, you never nail it the way you think you're gonna nail. It's none of that. It's none of that. A self tape, you have so much control. You can spend as much time as you want in it. Yes. You can shoot yourself the way you want. You can try different things. And then you send it out and you forget about it.
Yeah.
It's good for your mental health, I think. It's better as an actor for your mental health. Yeah. I think doing self-tapes. Yeah. Okay, that's all I'm saying now. Hope any of that was useful.
But I did want to what Ben was saying. It truly is the combination of the what's for you is for you and then do the work. Kerry Washington has this great quote that I love and I think about it all the time. And she goes, if you really want to catch the bus and you pray and hope and dream that you'll catch the bus, and then you run with all of your might to catch the bus, and then you miss the bus, it wasn't your bus. But if you really want to catch the bus, you pray, hope, and dream, and then you slowly walk to get there and you miss it, it could have been your bus. So it is a combo at the end of the day.
That's a great quote.
I know.
But the running is the thing that makes it so tiring. The fact that you keep running to the bus and the bus is never there.
Angel down there, because you're new to all this, but
Yeah, no, I mean that's real. And more than anything, I think it takes a lot of faith. Lo que es para ti, nadie te lo quita. That's right. What is for you, and I think you have to have a lot of faith in that. And something like specific to this audition, it's you just got to be yourself, which is the hardest thing to do. But there's no one like you. And you're either going to fit the puzzle piece or you're not. And I heard from one of the casting members that casted this show that it was just the way that I introduced myself. And I thought when I sent it in that it was the goofiest little like, hola, my name is. And I was like, but it was just truly who I was in that moment. And I think that caught their attention in some way.
Also, sometimes you forget, like, the audition is your chance to actually be the person. Yeah. That's the one chance you actually get to do it. So why not have fun inhabiting the role and the character? Because that's the only you walk in the room or you put it on tape. That's the only time you might actually be playing that part. So how fun is that, right? Like, you get to try on all these
Become
things.
result oriented. That's when it all vanishes and the fun vanishes and all of that.
my favorite is still the carpet squares. I have this visual of you now. Every time I see you from now on.
The little cart.
Little carpets.
You like them?
I love that. This is an audience question. Do you have any pre-show rituals, or what are your pre-show rituals for New York, New York? Like, who likes to get to the theater early? Who likes to get to the theater at half hour? Hannah's smiling.
I like to get to the theater right at half hour. That's just always how I've been. They don't pay me to be in the building any more than that.
No, would you like to get there like right at half hour?
Yeah. And however much makeup I can get on my face in a half hour, that's what's going to get on the stage, That's
Pre-show
okay.
rituals, what do you do for a warm-up?
I actually sing along with the opening number when I'm backstage because I don't come into the show until the very tail end of the opening number. And so I watch the dancers. I have a really great moment with Janet every single night where we sing a tiny portion of Cheering for Me Now and we hum together and we examine her bag of groceries, and she teaches me how to say the different vegetables in the grocery bags in Spanish.
That's where you got carrots from the other day. You kept saying that.
I was like, zanahoria. I learned that today. I was so excited. But we have our little moments. But yeah, singing along gets me vocally prepared to sing the show.
Learning vegetables in Spanish. Yeah. I love it. Emily, do you like to get there early? What's your ritual?
I like to get there a little early, be there, take my time, be slow. But my warm up is I share a dressing room with Janet, and we just talk.
Yeah.
We just chit chat, right?
Yeah, we play music.
We play music. Yeah. It's very chill. It's very spa-like in our dressing room, wouldn't you say?
100%. Yes. We keep it cold and light and fun. Yeah.
But is it just talking amongst yourselves to sort of get you into
Pretty much, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't do any voodoo rituals or special stretchy stretches or anything. Yeah.
Angel and I do have a ritual every night before we go on stage. We say hello to everybody on our side of the wing, basically, have a great show. And then Angel and I hold hands and we pray. And we have a moment where we pray for whatever we need that day. We pray over the audience. We pray over our cast members. We pray over each other. It's really a moment of gratitude. And I think it's been really beautiful in bonding us. And I have to say it's my favorite moment of the day. I look forward to it every night. I really do.
That moment is such a beautiful moment, and of course it just gets us together and it puts us on the same playing field before we head onto that stage. And I love that we sometimes do it in Spanish, sometimes do it in English, whatever we feel that day. For me, getting ready to do the show starts the moment that I wake up, as I'm learning that doing this 8 times a week is a lot, and I've never done this before. So it's a lot of trial and error. Sometimes I find things that work. Sometimes I find things that don't. I'd like to get to the theater about an hour before to also try and take my time as much as I can. But there are days where the subways are running late, and I'm running late, and I get there 30 minutes before, and whatever happens, happens. But I know that I've at least had my day to get me ready, and that is either doing a little physical exercise, steaming, vocally warming up, and just being present, like being a human, right? And having as many things as I can to fill myself outside of the workspace. But honestly, I mean, going to work with these folk, it doesn't really feel like work much. So I'm lucky.
Aw. Ben, for you, do you like to get there early?
I usually get there at a minimum 45 minutes before curtain. A lot of times my girlfriend's in Aladdin, and she goes in about an hour before to warm up and everything, so I'll just ride up with her. But I like to get in there early, and my dressing room mate is Clyde Alves, and he and I have been friends before this, and we've kind of set our dressing room up in a cool way.
Yep.
It's the swankiest room in the building.
So we're very comfortable in there. Yeah. So we'll go in there, and he's married to Robin Herder, who's over at Beautiful Noise. So they come in from upstate, so he's there early. So we usually get in there early and chit chat. He's getting a dog today. So we get in there early and relax, and then the ritual, I guess, would be it's not pre-show; it's right at the beginning of the show. I'm not in the beginning; I don't come in till like a bit after, and but I go down and I watch the opening every day.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like I need to feel connected to the show, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of to get into it before I actually have to do anything, and then I just kind of enjoy watching everybody do their thing.
That's great. Oliver, for you, how early do you like to get there and pre-show rituals?
I don't love to like wait around generally, so I like to get there at half hour when I can. Usually I'm like 10 minutes early because of subway paranoia. But I would say I don't have many like warming up rituals, though I will say the theater is a very superstitious place. So I think me personally, and maybe all of us have grown accustomed to things that we do either during the show, and if we miss them, it's not actually important, but it is. There's a large sort of full body poster of Bernadette Peters in the basement, and I have to touch her nose every time I walk by. If I don't do it, the next scene is just gonna be bad. So stuff like that, that's like, means nothing, but it really does. Janet and John and I do a little dance at the end of Cheering for Me Now, and yeah. While you're singing, we do a little dance. Ben's there, he's watching us. So stuff like that I think
Sometimes Ben steps in.
Yeah.
They're bad moments.
He has to. So I think like stuff like that's just like kind of like grounds you in like being here every night. That stuff is important to me. Yeah.
I always say the show backstage is much more interesting than the one you guys
Way better.
All the fun is being had.
I love that. Bowing at St. Bernadette.
Yeah.
Who put that down there? Do you know?
I think one of the costume, it was like in the costume room, and then they put it outside, and
She always looks fierce.
yeah.
Another audience question is, what is it like singing these iconic songs by John Kander, the late Fred Ebb, and the new ones with Lin-Manuel Miranda? Anybody can start.
Well, I get to sing one of the new ones, and it's so catchy. I hear it outside, and I hear some of my cast members sometimes. There's a little part that says "Baila conmigo un poquito," and that just it gets to you, and I think it just fills you with joy, which is what music has done for me, and I'm just so glad that we get to pass that on to our audience every day.
Beautiful. Someone else? Janet?
Oh goodness, I get to be a part of some of the ensemble singing in the show, and we get to do light every night. And there's a point where we were all singing. I don't know how many parts in that harmony. It was like
It's a big old
12 parts.
17, yeah.
And it's just, I think it's the only moment where almost all of us are on stage and we're singing together. And this massive, gorgeous, powerful chord. Sometimes there's an audible gasp in the audience when they hear us collectively singing. And it's just so powerful. I mean, that's the power of music. And we get to experience that together. So, there's nothing better.
That's my favorite number to listen to because it's my character is often not in the company of many other people on the stage. That was a weird way to phrase that. But anyway, I get to be with the entire ensemble probably once during the course of the show, and that's during light. And I don't sing at all. I just listen. And it's my favorite moment because I get to actually hear the rich harmonies and really dig into the orchestrations, because usually I'm singing them if I'm on the stage. And so I'm not always keenly listening, but I get to keenly listen then. And oftentimes I'll pick a person to really look at, to ground myself to. I love looking at Jimmy Borstelman. I love looking at Clyde. I love looking at all of you, but I'll often find a person and just watch you sing light. And I learn something new about the song every single time. And the thing that always crosses my mind while we're singing that song is because the lights go on the audience. And so you're very, very aware of like, oh, you're watching us do a musical for you. And the fourth wall feels very broken in that moment. And it can feel a bit strange for the audience. And you can see them sort of shifting in their seats like, oh, they're looking at us. They can see us. And there's something interesting happening in the energy in the room. And I look around at the cast and I'm like, whoa. There's so many other things that you all could be doing with your lives right now, like multi-talented human beings. And for this lifetime, you've decided to stand here and sing songs and sing healing songs over this congregation in a way of people. And I don't know how else to quite put that, but it's really powerful to realize that we've all chosen to be here and sing with one another, because it's a really powerful act, singing with people.
I love the score of this show because it's so diverse.
Yeah.
It's so diverse. You've got so many genres, different genres within this score. And I like that in between sort of all of these, gut-busting, belty stuff, I sing this little teeny number with Oliver that doesn't have a big orchestration, doesn't have a big anything, and that in the middle of more sort of big belty stuff, we have this beautiful choral arrangement that is light. The range of stuff is so interesting. I go see a lot of shows now where sort of all of the songs are kind of the same. Yeah. They kind of all sound the same. And I love that our show, every single song is different. So
Oliver, for you.
Just listening to Fred Ebb's lyrics every night, I hear new words almost every single time, especially when new people go on. He is one of my favorite lyricists of all time. It's just some of the smartest, most sort of delicate lyrics. Listening to A Quiet Thing is just, it hits me almost every single time in a different way. And I think it's just a treat to be like a part of something that is historical in a way, of people who are some of the greatest writers literally of all time.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I don't have to. I sing barely in the show, which is a change, a blessed change for me, actually. So I get to listen a lot, and I agree with you. The lyrics, Lynn's are amazing. We all know what Lynn can do with a lyric, and then you go to Fred Ebb, and it was a different generation of lyricists, and there's a bite. There's a real bite to Fred Ebb's lyrics that I don't. Not many people have anymore. It's just not around as much anymore, whether it just be where we are as a society and what our ears are tuned to, what we want. But there's a real bite. So there's like in, I wish he hadn't asked. There's the fight song that you guys have. I'm sorry I asked. And I wish he hadn't asked. Same thing. He thinks she's cheated, and he goes, what's his last lyric? The
You know what,
Buster?
you know what? So you know what, sister? You know what, Buster? You know what, stranger? And it's that last tears in my eyes, because if you've been cheated on, you've been lied to or whatever, all of a sudden this person becomes just that to you. They were this lover, this friend, and now all of a sudden you don't know who they are anymore. There's that. World Goes Round. The first time I heard this, which I can't believe it wasn't that long ago, but it was a cabaret that Maren Maisie was doing. And this was while she was fighting cancer. And she sang in The World Goes Round. And to have somebody that was living with cancer, she didn't like the word fighting cancer, living with cancer, sing that song brought a whole different a story to it. And so, yeah, the lyrics are they're incredible. They're just incredible.
Yeah. My final question for all of you is, what is your favorite moment in New York, New York? Not one that you do, but one of your co-stars performs.
There's a sequence that Anna and Colton do. The song is called I Love Music, but there's a whole scene before it too. And I think it's one of the most, to me, that's what the show sort of is that scene in that song. It's something that it's the thing I loved watching in rehearsal almost every day. I mean, from a technical standpoint, watching Colton sort of do that is this kind of like parade of musical theater of him playing all these instruments, and you know, he's just so like loose and it's so fun to watch. But the scene before it also just it's the first time that you guys get to really like develop your relationship, and it's the core of kind of where the musical goes after that, and it's definitely my favorite sequence to listen to and watch.
Who else wants to go? Favorite moment that someone else does?
I love the opening. I love the second act opening. That song is charming as hell. It's it feels like you're in La La Land. It feels like the movie a bit. Yeah. But it's a charming song. It's done so beautifully by you two. I think my role in that is incredible.
We're just saying snarky things.
We just
to
say
each other.
snarky things.
Because I sing the song on a microphone, but then I go off and we just like chat with each other, and then I go back and we just insult each other. It's great. It's so fun.
That's where she tells me carrot in Spanish. How that is.
I teach him whatever Spanish word I learned from Janet earlier.
But I love that whole opening. I think it's just a very different but really light and buoyant way to show where these characters are at that point in time, as well as to bring the audience back into the world of the show.
I love that.
I love the montages. I think the music and what's happening visually, sonically, is so magical. The winter montage, it really feels like you're in New York during the holidays. It's just magic. It's magic on stage, and those are my favorite moments where there's not anything necessarily being said or sung, but the music is what's telling you the story. And I think that's a beautiful element in our show that's done with such poise, and it's sophisticated.
Alison Blackwell, one of our members of our cast, is an opera singer, becomes an opera singer, and gets discovered in the second act of our show. And I have the privilege of waiting on stage left wing and watching Anna watch her and feel seen and feel represented, and then I hear the audience falling in love with Alison's voice, and that is so magical, and I carry that energy with me, and it's beautiful to watch.
I like when the band comes up at the end. That's my favorite moment. It's so satisfying.
Spoiler alert.
Well, for those of you who don't know, but we're not going to give it away, but there is one of the many magical moments is at the end of this show. You have goosebumps from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. It is one of the most spectacular moments that I've seen on stage in such a long time. And then the doors open at the St. James Theater, and everybody just walks out into New York streets feeling so happy. But it's a fabulous moment when that happens. That's a big moment. Anna, for you.
I love Wine and Peaches. It's insane what they're doing. They're tap dancing on steel beams, and they look like they're in the clouds. And what was so special about that is we got a letter sent to the theater one day from a woman who said, "Thank you so much for the Wine and Peaches number. My great uncle so-and-so was actually the man smoking the cigarette in that construction photo that we all know so well, where they're eating lunch up on the beams." And it was such a joy to see him represented on your stage. But I stand off stage because I enter right after that number is over. So I'm over in the wings on stage left, and I'm tapping along. I've almost figured out the whole number, not quite. But I love it, and I can't believe they do it every single night. And what's wild is when our swings go on. Because it's so hard to do every day if you know the number, but these swings are swinging 5 to 6 different tracks, and some of them go on the beams and some don't. And so-and-so might have been a ballerina in the previous number, but here she is on a beam with a guy wig and a cigarette in her mouth, and she's tapping along, and I can't believe they don't fall off, knock on wood. But yeah, that's my favorite. It's quite a spectacle.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't seen this show, I mean, I'm a huge John Kander, Fred Ebb fan. There are so many Easter eggs in this show that will blow your mind, right? I mean, you're all a part of this. I mean, it's such a feel-good musical. So if you've seen it already, go again. If you haven't seen it, get a ticket to New York. New York is one of the best nights you'll spend in the theater with this beautiful company, which I'd like to thank them all for doing this today.
Thank you for
the
having
company of
us.
New York, New York.